Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be interviewing Dr. Nathan Bryan, who creates accessible health education with scientific depth while creating opportunities for amazing transformation, something we are all interested in. We're going to dive deep into his area of expertise today. Dr. Bryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Our pleasure. So let's go back in time. What inspired you to become a doctor in the first place?
I always had an interest in science and medicine. I had a chance to do undergraduate research at University of Texas at Austin, where I got a degree in biochemistry. From there, I went to LSU School of Medicine and got a Ph.D. in molecular and cellular physiology, and just really loved, trying to solve complex biological problems to make a difference and leave a legacy.
Awesome. You have spent a lot of your career, I believe, studying nitric oxide. What first drew you to that molecule, and when did you kind of realize it would have such broad implications for human health?
God has a sense of humor, I think. When I was at LSU School of Medicine, the Nobel Prize had just been awarded for the discovery of nitric oxide. And I had a chance to meet one of the gentlemen who shared the Nobel Prize. And, I started to learn what nitric oxide is, what it does, how important it was in the body. And really that led me down this direction because Dr. Ignardo told me, he goes, Nathan, if we can ever figure out how to restore and recapitulate nitric oxide production and signaling in the human body, it'll change the world, and it'll certainly change the landscape of medicine and healthcare. So that was a very profound statement and started me on that path, and I haven't looked back.
Okay, well, it's been described as a miracle molecule. In layman's terms, what does it do?
Well, 25 years ago when I started, it was considered a miracle molecule, and a miracle implies that you don't have a scientific explanation for it. But fast forward to today, I don't think it's no longer a miracle molecule because we understand the science, the biochemistry, the enzymology, the signal transduction, the nitric oxide. But it does a lot of things that may be considered miraculous. But it dilates blood vessels. It's a gas that's naturally produced. It regulates blood flow, tissue oxygenation, controls inflammation, oxidative stress, immune dysfunction, mobilizes our own stem cells, activates the mitochondria. So everything we know about human optimization, longevity, disease prevention is dependent upon sufficient nitric oxide production inside the human body.
That sounds absolutely incredible. What is one thing most people misunderstand about circulation, blood flow, cardiovascular health, how those types of things get affected, by nitric oxide?
Well, what we're finding is that the earliest event in the onset and progression of cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer of men and women worldwide, is the loss of nitric oxide production. And I think what people don't understand is a lot of the things they're doing on a daily basis is shutting down their natural nitric oxide production. Things like using antiseptic mouthwash, which is killing the oral microbiome, using fluoride-based toothpaste, fluoride in the drinking water, taking drugs such as antacids, whether they're prescription antacids or over-the-counter Prilosec, Prevacid, Nexium, and then eating a high sugar, high carbohydrate diet. So those 4 to 5 things are completely shutting down the body's ability to make nitric oxide. So if we eliminate those practices, we're allowing the body to naturally produce this molecule. Then, we can do things like deep breathing, nasal breathing, moderate physical exercise, intermittent fasting, 20, 30 minutes of sunlight exposure a day. All those things are scientifically and clinically proven to activate and stimulate nitric oxide production.
So what are some of the best food sources for supporting nitric oxide pathways?
Well, I think the best term in terms of diet is what we don't eat, and it's things like sugar and simple carbohydrates, and getting our supplements from gummies and chews and things like that. But when we look at food and dietary sources, most of the literature is on a molecule called inorganic nitrate, which is found in a lot of green leafy vegetables. Beets can contain this molecule. The challenge that we face is, and we published this in 2015, it depends upon which vegetables you're eating and where the vegetables are grown determines their nitrate content. So it's very difficult, if not impossible, to recommend certain foods and diets. The other problem, and the major problem, is that if you don't have the right oral bacteria, then you don't get a nitric oxide benefits from any of the foods you eat. And that's where the antiseptic mouthwash comes in. That's where the fluoride toothpaste comes in, because every time you brush your teeth with fluoride or drink fluoridated water or use an antiseptic mouthwash, you're destroying the oral microbiome, and these bacteria are responsible for the production of nitric oxide. So if you kill the good bacteria, you eliminate the benefits of diet and food. And what we're finding, and we and others have published on this, if you use mouthwash, it's killing the good bacteria, decreases nitric oxide production, and your blood pressure goes up. And high blood pressure is the number one driver of the number one killer of men and women worldwide. So this is a huge, huge public health initiative.
So if we're not supposed to use antiseptic mouthwash, should we use any, is there a mouthwash that is okay?
For the past 25 years, I've been involved in trying to understand this microbiome and which bacteria are responsible for this and how do we repopulate them. And so what we're developing a nitric oxide friendly mouth rinse, because 2 out of 3 Americans use mouthwash every day, and we want to give them a safe alternative that improves their health, doesn't, lead to a health decline. We've done this in toothpaste. We've created a non-fluoridated hydroxyapatite microbiome friendly toothpaste. So we're changing the terrain, the oral microbiome. So that's having a huge effect on public health. But we're developing a mouth rinse. It should be available by the end of this year. But it's taken us a long time to figure out how do we create an environment to selectively kill the oral pathogens while allowing the good bacteria to repopulate and contribute to human health.
As you've mentioned, you're helping bring nitric oxide focused products to consumers. What standards should people use when evaluating supplements or, wellness products in this category?
Well, look, you got to look at the science behind the products and the person behind the invention, because unfortunately there are a lot of companies out there who really don't understand the science. And so you got to look at the inventor of the products. Is there published clinical data on it? Is there strong science behind the kind of the mechanism of those products? And the biggest misconception, and companies are out there spending tens of millions of dollars on advertising, is that beets can provide nitric oxide. And beets are not nitric oxide. In fact, beets are so far away from nitric oxide that it's almost humorous. And so what people have to understand, and my philosophy is a little bit different, because number one, we had to understand, how does the human body make nitric oxide? And then what leads to a loss of its production? And until you understand those two fundamental questions, you really can't develop safe and effective nitric oxide products, because a lot of these companies are run by former tech CEOs, insurance companies, people who are not scientists. So there cannot and will not develop safe and effective products that address the root cause of nitric oxide deficiency, just because they don't understand the science.
Throughout your career, you've helped so many people. What's your biggest challenge now?
The challenge now is really education, or more importantly, the re-education, because as I mentioned, a lot of these companies are out there providing false advertising, deceptive marketing, and creating misinformation in the marketplace. So my biggest challenge is not only educate and inform on the science of nitric oxide so that consumers and patients can become better informed to make better decisions, but to correct all the misinformation that beets are not nitric oxide, that arginine is not a viable alternative or a way to enhance nitric oxide production. But for me, it's all about education, bringing the science to the fore, and so that consumers become aware of the things they shouldn't do, but more importantly, the things that they should avoid, and to recognize safe and effective nitric oxide products based on science.
What does success look like for Bryan Therapeutics over the next few years?
We've been very successful in the consumer market, but we've been focused on developing safe and effective drug therapy for the past 15 years. But for us, it's dealing with things like cardiovascular disease. It's eliminating cardiovascular disease as the number one killer of men and women worldwide, which has been for the past 100 years. So we've got a drug we're addressing for ischemic heart disease. We're going after Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a vascular metabolic disease that's the end consequence of chronic nitric oxide insufficiency. So we're developing a nitric oxide drug for Alzheimer's. Then we make a topical drug for diabetic ulcers and non-healing wounds. So for me, success is addressing these poorly managed medical conditions that current drug therapy is very poorly managed and really getting to the root cause of many diseases. And really, our success is changing the world one life at a time.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
Waking up every morning and getting texts, phone calls, emails from people who said we've changed their lives. They've implemented some of these lifestyle strategies and taken our products, and it's changed their life. They're getting off blood pressure medicine. They have better energy. Their sexual performance improved. Their cognitive performance improved. They're better able to spend time with their friends and family and enjoy life. And there's no greater compliment or thing we can do every day. And, to wake up and the job that you're doing is changing people's lives.
That's awesome. For our folks watching or listening who want to learn more about you and Bryan Therapeutics, where is the best place for them to go?
I encourage people to get educated and informed. I always send people to my book. It's the latest book I've written. It's called The Secret of Nitric Oxide. Bring the science to life. I educate and inform on the science of nitric oxide, tell my personal journey of discovery. You can follow me on YouTube. I've got my own YouTube channel, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan Nitric Oxide. Social media, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan on Instagram and LinkedIn. And then, our consumer products can be found at n101.com. That's the letter N, number one, letter O, number one, .com.
All right. Well, this has been Seth Greene with Dr. Nathan S. Bryan from n101.com and The Secret of Nitric Oxide. Dr. Bryan, anything else you want to share that I didn't think to ask you yet?
No, I think, I just encourage people to do your own research, get informed, understand what nitric oxide is, what it does, because if you're someone who's sick and tired of being sick and tired and the standard of care has failed you, then look as a deficiency of nitric oxide as a potential cause of your illness. But more importantly, look at it as a potential solution. Stop doing the things that are inhibiting the natural production of this molecule. Start doing the things that we know can activate and stimulate its production, and watch your life transform right before your eyes.
That is absolutely incredible. Is there like a blood test or a urine test or something that'll tell us what our nitric oxide level is and if we're deficient?
No, unfortunately, because this molecule is a gas and it's gone in less than a second once it's produced. So it's not part of your standard blood panel. And we have to rely on symptoms. And I think that's the most important thing, because our body talks to us all the time. And so we rely on these hierarchy of symptoms. So the first sign and symptom of nitric oxide deficiency is erectile dysfunction. If you can't dilate the blood vessels of the sex organs, then you can't get an erection in both men and women. Number two, your blood pressure goes up. Because if you lose the main molecule that dilates the blood vessels, your blood pressure goes up. 2 out of 3 Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood pressure. Number 3, you develop metabolic disease, insulin resistance, diabetes, because nitric oxide is required for insulin signaling. Number 4, you develop exercise intolerance. You get short of breath walking up a flight of steps. And then fifthly, you develop mild cognitive impairment, you lose your memory, you develop dementia, and eventually Alzheimer's. So at each step and each symptom that manifests, it's your body telling you need to change course. You need to take corrective steps and improve nitric oxide production, or start taking our nitric oxide products to overcome the deficiency.
That is absolutely incredible. Go check out n101.com. Go check out Dr. Bryan on social. Go grab a copy of the book. We know your time's incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some of it with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are welcome. Our pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.